Hey, Earth and humans on it. This is Tom Jacobs. I'm on the web at tdjacobs.com. And I do a bunch of different things for work, including energy work. And that's what this audio only video is going to be about today. There's going to be a little trek through history. Um, but I'm offering a new service, which represents an evolution in my relationship with Archangel Metatron, um, who's a very serious, powerful being and sometimes challenging for humans to channel him because his energy is so giant. And I've had to learn over years. I guess at this point it's 12 and a half years. So we're going to talk. My student and client and friend Ella is here too, and she was the first one to receive this version of the energy work. So we're going to talk about it, and maybe we'll ask each other questions. Maybe it's a little trading places interview a little bit. Um, but I want to introduce you to it and to help you understand how it can benefit you. And she's going to share some of her experience, and I'm going to share like where it comes from, but also how it works and what I'm actually doing so you can understand. Some of you hearing this will have experienced one-on-one energy work sessions or group events with me, but this is a new iteration that's different. And so we're going to talk and explore about that for a few minutes. So Ella, thanks for coming on and being willing to play with me on YouTube.
Yeah, this is great. I'm so excited to that you're sharing this with people and that we get to talk about it because it just feels like such a juicy big deal and so
Yeah.
accessible for people. And I just, having been like part of the initial effort of it, I feel
Yes.
excited about it and just anyway, excited to talk about it. So yay.
Cool, cool. Well, let me just do the history of where the relationship with Metatron comes from for me, and I'll tell the story, and then we'll get to 2023 in a minute or two.
Excellent.
Um, okay. So for me, it always, and if you have questions come up along the way, feel free to ask. I don't need to, be on a soapbox here and, not be interrupted or something but anyway, for me, lots of work comes from my response to stuff in the world. And I think this is, Pluto in the 12th house wants to be of service, but doesn't know anything. I have Pluto and Venus in the 12th house in Libra. I would love to help make people's lives better, participate in more social justice, something, but I don't know what to do. So when life goes knock knock knock, here's something you can do, I'm like, oh well, that's awesome. So a lot of stuff in my practice over the last 20 plus years has been a response to something. So with the energy work, well, when I met Metatron, that was in the end of 2004, and it was in my very first channeled reading. The channel described this being who I later found out was Metatron, and he had been talking to the friend who introduced me to the channel. So when I got in the car and I was all like a Twitter and describing this being she described, my friend at the time, she flipped out because like gripping the steering wheel, staring ahead, because he had visited her to tell her stuff about me to be helpful, as if she were reading for me. So that's when I met him and was told he was a guide of mine. And since then, I've thought of Jehudi and Metatron, like her. Jehudi is Hermes and Saint Germain, that being. I've thought of them as helpers and tutors, but it really is that Metatron's a guide. He's been here this whole time, these 24 to 20 years. So in 2011, I was on the phone with my partner. The relationship was young then, and she was in her car in another state having a very bad day. And I said to myself, gosh, I said to her, I wish I could figure out a way to help you right now, like energetically. And the idea popped in my head, and it turns out it was Metatron, and he basically said, "Oh, just do this." I said, "Oh, okay." So I did that, and she felt so much better. So she said, I don't know if it was 5 or 10 minutes, but she said, "Oh my God, you have to offer that to other people." That was the
Yeah.
best thing that ever happened. Yeah. Yeah. She was spinning, sitting in her car, very upset about a conflict in a relationship, and just really kind of, spun out and upset. And I just did what he showed me to do.
Hmm.
So after that, it took a few months, I think, but after that, I started weaving it into some sessions. But it was very tiring, so I didn't want to do it all the time. But then eventually I did do it all the time and got exhausted. And then Metatron was like, let's figure out a way to make it less hard on you. It turns out that was the plan the whole time. Not that I should be exhausted, but to learn how to do it in new ways over time.
Right. And so that learning has been sort of step by step. And I know you've
Yeah.
incorporated a lot of Metatron energy work in, like in the meditations that you offer, like there's a
Yes.
set of 22 and a set of 31. And
Hmm.
by the way, like some of your students work with them all the time and they're great.
Hmm.
Just in case anyone hearing this wants to get them. Um, the meta that Metatron frequency, you're able to bring it through in different contexts. So in those meditations, but then in your one-on-one healing work with people or energy work with
Yes.
people, and you've worked a lot, as I understand, with like previous trauma, both in this lifetime and other
Hmm.
lifetimes, and you've had a
Hmm.
lot of very people working at with really intense content. And so
Yes.
when you're doing the sessions, you've had to, it's almost, to me, it looks almost, sounds almost like juggling chainsaws in a sense. Like you've got this
Yes.
big energy and you're dealing and you're dealing with a lot of stuff. And so
But but
when,
but
yeah,
even more importantly, to get to be able to do that, I had to bring Metatron's frequency into my body and consciousness.
mm-hmm,
It's not
right,
just like Jehudi's words coming out of my mouth. My fifth chakra went through all these rumbling, I don't know how to describe it, like not earthquakes, but like rumbling boulder crashes. All these things had to change. And it was super intense at first. And then I learned how to, anyway, right now we're in iteration 5, which we'll describe, like
right,
phase 5. But
right,
just to get to the place where I could use the Metatron energy at first, I had to do this whole thing. My fifth chakra, my throat, had to transform every time. And it was hard. And I used to use these particular grounding stones that I put Metatron's energy in to bookmark it so I could find it. But that was the hardest part. Once I'm in it, that space, I can do whatever work. But anyway, yeah, it was that coming in and out of that space was exhausting. And that's where Metatron was like, let's help you figure out ways to modify this so your body isn't as taxed. Because, and the deal is, it's not that I was doing anything wrong,
mm-hmm,
but
no,
my
yeah,
consciousness had to basically spread open over time, had to open over time to be able to carry the enormous, I don't know how to say it. He
well,
Metatron,
well, yeah, I
Metatron.
mean, I have hints of that from being your student and working with you and the encounters that I've had
Hmm.
so far with his presence and frequency. And I won't, go into a lot of detail about that, but I definitely can at least witness back to you that yes,
Yeah.
it's like there's a lot to contend with. And like I have heard you, it sounds almost like you're sipping energy, like the way that you're processing air changes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's like yeah, but it's like you're sipping, but like the hose is really big.
right, yeah, I'm just sipping from my
Yeah,
fire hose over here.
yeah.
Yeah,
So he was basically like, "Hey, let's have you." That's like actually a good analogy, a good image. Over time, and again, this is in 5 different chapters from that first day in, I don't know, my gosh,
yeah,
June of 2011 or whatever, July,
so long ago,
where
yeah.
he's like, let's have you remain super grounded. So you're in your body and consciously choose to envision what this hose looks like and how much you're open to receiving. Given
Wow,
that you
okay,
are a
yeah.
human and my energy is so much bigger than any given human.
Oh, cool. So he really helped you understand what you were doing as you were learning it.
Step by
And
step.
then and
Yes.
then you'd have these upgrade moments where something would happen and you'd be like, "Oh, I have to try it differently."
Yes. I have to take time off or I have to stop
Yeah.
doing energy work for a year. That happened once.
Hmm.
And then I was like, wow, I really miss it. And but yeah, it's I can see the Akashic records, I can do all kinds of stuff. I can, without Metatron's energy,
Hmm.
without his consciousness. but I kind of like doing intense stuff. Like
Yeah.
I really do. And so it's been an interesting, like literally 12 years, 12 and a half years of like exploring, if I did the numbers right. But anyway,
Yeah.
exploring these different ways because I don't want to stop doing it. And so he's like, how do you say this? He didn't say it so much as I knew I was changing over time. I was developing energetically and consciousness wise, and it had to be in a certain order, and I had to hit certain speed bumps.
Hmm.
So I wasn't doing it wrong when I got to be tired of it or from it. But it
Yeah.
was like I needed to, I don't know how to say it. Like I needed to run into that wall to realize how fast I was running and to remind myself maybe I can choose a different speed and have more control as I go.
As you're talking about it, it really reminds me of the way when baby humans learn to walk, a lot of the time they end up sitting on their butt. And then they're like, "Oh, that means I can get up." And then they start to go a
That's
little
it.
faster and they just like there's it's but you can't really learn to walk without landing on your bum.
That's right.
And and you have been taking in working with this energy, and it makes sense as you're describing it to me, linking back to, I think in one of the papers that you have um, online, there's a diagram where you show how chakras can look misaligned
Yes. Yes.
when you look at the energetic of a person. And then it's like Metatron has this imprint, like he knows what a human's
That's right.
chakras in balance look like, and
That's right.
he can, his energy can adjust that for us.
That's right.
And so you as a true medium are connecting, you're really being like a bridge connecting
Hmm.
Metatron's energy with the person that you're working on.
Yeah. So if I'm focusing on like Joe Schmo in an individual session, or what I'm doing is exactly what you're describing, but I'm looking at what's out of order. I'm going into that part of the unconscious. Oh, this life from 1100s Egypt or whatever. And I'm going in there and I'm dealing with that part of their unconscious self
Mm-hmm.
where the problem is rooted.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who
Yeah.
are familiar with the Akashic records or unfamiliar with it, with them, basically, we have so many millions of lives that if you were to say something like, dear Akashic records, thanks in advance. If you were to like approach them and say, I want to see all the problems about anger, you would be overwhelmed, or you wouldn't get good info because it would be too much info. So,
Mm-hmm.
but if you said, look, I'm interested in the source of this problem I'm having now, please take me to the root cause in some other life or from another life, then you can get very specific. And so in that specificity, then I can rearrange and clean and clear and calibrate. And the way that I think of it is a blueprint. Metatron has the
Mm-hmm.
blueprint for the human consciousness and therefore energy field and chakra system.
Uh-huh.
So I could overlay it. I could say, oh, this is going on in your third chakra, in your unconscious or in your emotional body, whatever terms you want to use. But it's from this other thing in this other life, and you lied and blah, 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 and you felt guilty and blah, 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 blah. And so we do a little forgiveness protocol and whatever, because we don't judge anything. But then we apply what that third chakra should look like. Like we overlay Metatron's image, and crap that needs to go rises to the surface akin to a smelting process. And then
Mm-hmm.
I clear it out and ask the client to maintain intentions to like get rid of garbage. And so we do that, and that's the work. But that is tiring.
Yeah.
Even so even as he helped me through phases, I would say that was phase like 2 through 4. uh Even as it got easier and better, it was still a lot of this individual work where I'm engaging with people's histories and stories.
Yes.
And
And
I
then,
mhm.
yeah. And
I
then
don't
they bring
Yeah,
their own energetic tension to that because, like, let's face it, people aren't bringing you the stuff that makes them feel happy. Like
That's right.
they're they're
That's right.
they're not bringing you all the joy of their, successful. They just got a promotion and they're engaged. They're
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
the other country song.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't want to blame anybody for, being negative or seeming negative or having something unhappy to describe. If I'm doing healing work and the door is open and they're paying me, yeah, they probably have something negative they need to talk about. So I don't blame anybody for that. But I
right.
just hit this point where the work plus the story and the history, I was just like, I had a hard time listening to people. And
Well, yeah, it's a lot because we're
yeah,
carrying those things, and of course we're not blaming anybody.
right.
You wouldn't be blaming them. Well, like that's part of our work as humans is to grow and learn. And so we're really just everybody who's showing up with a problem is like, I want to
Yes,
learn how to make this work. I want to,
of course.
to use Jehudi's language, I want to vibrate the story in a loving frequency,
Yeah,
not in my fearful frequency. And so,
exactly.
like coming back to that, then this new iteration of the process, um, and maybe this is a good place for me to, is this now to talk about how it started? Because, or
Well,
do you want to talk
let
any
me
more about
insert
the
one
history?
one brief chapter of history. Yeah.
Okay,
So
go.
then fast forward from 2011 to 2014, and my mom at the time was having a bunch of little annoying health issues, like one after the other. And just stuff that was going on in her marriage. Then she didn't really know what to do about certain things and how to respond, and to her husband at the time. And just little things. And I was like, hey, can I offer you some energy work to try to help with some of this? And she said, yeah, of course. So I did a little thing for her, like 5 or 6 minutes, and she was like, oh my God, that was great. Wow, can we do this tomorrow? So we did it the next day, and I ended up doing it, I don't know if it was a week or two. And she said, wow, this is amazing. And I was like, I want to do this for more people. So I set up in August of 2014 these by donation calls. People could opt in. Like I did it every day for 31 days in
Yeah,
August of 2014.
that's the 31-day set.
Exactly.
That's a
And
great set.
and I jumped in, enthusiastic, full of energy, so excited. And people did like a donation basis. Like at the end of the month, they tallied up if they did 3 calls, and then, or if they did 10 or 30 or whatever. And then they just sent me a donation based in that. And at the end of the 31 days, I was like, holy expletiving expletives, I am worn out. So I said, okay, well, what if, but I'm still enthusiastic
Yeah,
because people were having real benefits.
yeah.
And I was getting emails every day, like, so happy from people.
Yeah, I
Um,
love in one of them, Jehudi says something like, and we read his emails over his shoulder.
yes, exactly, exactly. Because
Like
because Jehudi and Metatron know that's great work. They
yeah,
know it's amazing, but they're like watching me like a kid in a
yeah,
candy store, like,
yeah,
oh, really? That's possible?
yeah,
So anyway, at the end of that, I said, okay, I'm taking September off from this noise, from this business.
yeah,
And then I said, I will regroup. What would it be like if I had a limited number and I knew what it cost me? Like I knew what it felt like. I knew what it took. So in October of that year, I did 22 days. I scheduled it 22. So that 22 set for a long time, I thought must be better because I was, whatever, but they're both amazing. So the 22 set is available, to all free on YouTube and also my site. And I think they're on Insight Timer now too. Um,
oh great,
yeah, and so then the 31 I have with a cost. Like if you work through the 22 days and you want more, you can have 54. Just did the 31 days. But anyway, so that's where it came from. My mom was like having a little thing with her neck and then her foot and then her bladder. And then I was like, can I help you? Can I figure out a way to probably, just like with my partner in 2011 when she was having this emotional kind of spin out. So anyway, so then that was 2014, and people have been using those for years. And there's been another adjustment since then. And I did take a year off from doing energy work just because I was just tired.
yeah,
And then we get to 2023, where I have been coming in and out of adrenal fatigue. And so
yeah,
I've been like, man, I don't want to stop doing energy work, but I have to learn how to manage my energy in new ways and adapt my diet and sleep more and rest more and change my practice. And I didn't really know how to do that. And that's when you come in with your story in phase 5 of this process. Yeah.
Right. And so like it is interesting how your upgrades, your personal process upgrades with this come in responsive
Hmm.
nature to other people's crises. So
That's
like
right.
in my world, I have an overall health condition that's limiting to the amount of stuff I can do in any given time. And then there was a medical crisis in my family that was really pushing me to like to just go over my limits. And so
Mhm.
the danger for me there, of course, is not being able to do anything because I've done too much. But then I had this freaky little fall, like just a little weird accident where I just fell, and I had really what I perceived could have even been the beginnings of whiplash, where like I hit enough times on the way down, and different things, weird angles, that like all over my body was really not feeling great. And you were like, well, maybe there's a way I can maybe there's a way I can help without, getting into um
Exhausting myself.
right,
Yeah.
without
But
without draining my own energy.
and when
And
you said that, that's when Metatron showed me the new thing.
wow.
Yes. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
that was really exciting, and you were like, "Well, maybe I can do it." And you tried to do it. I think we didn't do it on the phone that
That's
first
right.
time. You were like, "I'm going to try it and see how it goes."
Hmm.
And the next day what I remember is like maybe it was 36 hours later, I was like, "Yeah, I felt it 3 times yesterday." And you were like, "I did it 3 times."
I know. Oh my gosh,
And
oh,
so
that's so cool.
I
Yeah.
know.
What ended up happening was I didn't do what I thought I was going to do. What I did was envision envision something in 3 different. I literally, I think the first one was 6 seconds. The second one was probably 10 seconds. The third one was 8 seconds.
Mhm.
I didn't do it. And I told
Yeah.
you later, it was like I was gonna go drive my old timey car and I put on my little
Oh, right, your
goggles and my
gloves.
gloves and my
Yeah.
hat. And I
Yeah.
then I got in the car and I kind of like shifted my butt around so I was comfortable, put my hands on the wheel and imagined driving. And then I got out of the car and went back to my life. I didn't do it.
Uh-huh.
And you said I felt it.
Yes, and yet it
And you,
was done.
yes, and it was done. And I was like, oh my God, it's not about doing energy work. It's about
Yes.
focusing, it's about connecting to Metatron, focusing my consciousness, and the work occurs.
Yes.
And that did not cost me anything. And then go ahead with yours. Yeah, go ahead with your.
Right. And what had been happening for me besides the fall was also because of my overdoing it. And it is interesting how both of us have this adrenal, you know, um
Yes.
issues that I was just running on adrenaline. And for me, when I'm doing, like, when that cycle hits, I can't sleep, and my sleep
Mm,
was just a wreck. And immediately after you started doing this, my sleep resolved. Like it came back into a much more normal pattern for me. So I
mhm,
wasn't like waking up at 2 in the morning and unable to go back to sleep. And I could even nap within a couple of days,
mhm,
which was huge for me. And
mhm.
anybody who suffers from sleep stuff will recognize, like, wait, it fixes your sleep. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and I mean, I'm one person, and I can't like make I can't make promises for everybody, but it is pretty amazing to have that happen, because I was definitely going in the opposite direction um pretty
a-
significantly.
after that injury. Yeah, after that
Right.
injury.
And that has held. So
Okay,
for the
great.
most part, with wobbles here and there, but
Hmm.
my situation is still pretty intense. And but what I feel like the work, um as I guess you went on to do it for several days. Like, you do you want
Yes.
to talk more about that, how that process unfolded? Because you started adding
Yeah.
other people, and
Well,
that
yeah.
gets us into the sort of group, individual versus group topic.
Yeah, yeah. So I added my partner because of her ongoing issues. So the second day I added her and I put, I envisioned each of you kind of like side by side. And honestly, the way I did it was, um, I imagined little gingerbread cookies with your faces on them, and
Hmm.
they were on a baking sheet. And and I was just feeling playful, like, and
Yeah.
so I did that, making sure your energies did not mix,
Hmm.
and I experimented with going back and forth or just focusing on you, just focusing on her, getting her out of the way, just focus. I experimented with that.
Hmm.
And she had the experience of a certain thing that is I don't know how to say this, like something that she experiences all the time physically that's difficult wasn't as difficult, and there was no reason except this. So
Yeah.
she was cautiously doing something and it was not a problem to do it.
Right. Well, that's so
She was
similar to
surprised.
mine. Like
Yes.
it's like it overall adjusted
Yeah.
something in a positive way that there was no good reason for it.
Yeah, yeah. So I did this with you
No
for off and on.
external obvious reason.
Exactly. Yeah. No change in diet, no change in supplements or care
Right.
or behaviors. So I did it with you and with her off and on for it was more than a week. And then
Hmm.
I was like, this is awesome sauce.
Yeah.
And I don't know, within 2 or 2.5 weeks, I had put it on Facebook, and then I emailed my list. But I didn't really publicize it beyond that. And in a few days, I had more than 20 people on this roster.
Wow.
And so the deal is the way it's structured right now, this could change. But right now it's 5 sessions and the price is on my site. And I do have a fixed income hardship student reduced price option as well. No questions asked, just on the honor system. So there are two rate levels. And it's 5 sessions, which they're not going to be every day because of different reasons. Like right now, I'm actually traveling, I'm moving across the country. But even so, I have this list and I'll pick some names from the list. And sometimes the guide will say, like Joe Schmo's on the list, and I put him in the group, and the Joe's guide will say, not today. And I say, okay, cool. So I put him, I take him out. So I'm tracking how many times I do this, but it's 5 sessions. Typically, I would say within 2 or 3 weeks, it'll be done. And I email people when I start, and I email people when I finish. And like when I start the process of 5 and when I finish the cycle, but it wouldn't be every day, but it's like this cumulative thing. And I'm finding out that that is actually quite accurate because this one student of mine, I kept getting, he was the first one I kept getting a no for. And he signed up. I did, I think, 1 or 2 of these things for him. And then when I put him in the mix the next day, the guides were like, no, no, no. So after a week, I wrote him and said, I keep getting a no from your guides, but it just shifted. Are you having a hard week? And he's like, yeah, I've just been too stressed and too stimulated. And but I feel better now, so you can add me back in. So I'm getting information from people's guides along the way too. And so it doesn't, how do you say this? It doesn't mess with you because your guides are also involved in the process. Though I'm not really talking with them, I'm not doing guided readings. I'm just tuned in to you and I feel if it's the wrong day.
Right. You get that
It's really
information.
amazing.
And
Yeah,
that
it's
that
yeah.
actually that is super helpful. So from the level of limitation and illness I
Hmm.
have historically, like, even though I have a very sensitive acupuncturist who also does craniosacral therapy, um, like who's super sensitive and tuned in to people's
Hmm.
bodies.
Hmm.
That's the work she does. When I would go to her for acupuncture, it was almost impossible for her not to over treat me because just using normal needling techniques, like I would get some benefit, but then I would have to recover from the session.
For
And
sure.
then she learned this other technique that actually they try to use as few, it's not like traditional Chinese medicine. I don't want to go off on a big tangent, but
Yeah. Yeah.
she learned this way that doesn't overtreat. It
Yes.
never overtreats me. And
Yes.
so every time I get all the benefit of the session. And that's what that reminds me of, is like,
Yeah.
it has felt so smooth to me.
Hmm.
Like my system never feels like that exhaustion from doing a big
Yeah.
cathartic intense piece
That's
of
right.
work.
That's
it's
right.
it's it's super smooth. It feels supportive and effective. And then like, this was the thing that I've been like wanting to talk to you about, is that what I feel like is happening is because the imprint, the blueprint is activated more clearly for my system.
Yes.
There's this overall alignment that's happening, that's allowing things that I haven't even been able to see before,
Yes.
that
Yes.
have been affecting me, are like showing up, like, oh, look, now you can deal with me. And it's not
Yes.
particularly traumatic. It's more like, oh, look, here is your system aligning in this new way,
That's right.
and this is how the energy can flow now. And so it's flushing out stuff that is I might have had to get to it in a different way, like that might have been more exhausting, but now it just feels like it's flowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the benefit of, 5 gentle, essentially check-ins,
Yeah.
which are very gentle. And the Metatron energy is intense, but it's not coming through intensely. And I was thinking
Hmm.
as you're talking, it is, let's think of it as kind of like an adaptogen.
Yes. Oh,
Whatever, yeah,
perfect
whatever you
analogy.
need
Yeah.
is what it will do. Like if
What
you're
it
not
does.
sleeping, it'll work on that. If you are just stressed, if you are just anxious, it'll work on that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not, I wouldn't say a cure-all panacea or something, but it's like what you like, and that's how I don't need to know anyone's stories.
Hmm.
It's just like, you know, and almost all the people who have signed up so far have experienced the Metatron thing in some way with me or through the channel meditations. Um, that are online
Hmm.
that people, but otherwise I really want to expose more people to this because that's why we're doing this talk and to do this video because it will have an accumulative alignment effect. I feel very
Yes.
strongly that it will.
Yes, and I definitely feel that way, that is occurring. And so that's great
Great.
that that's your impression too, because
Yeah.
it's certainly my experience so far. It's been what, several weeks since you started.
I think it's been 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
not a real long time. And
Yeah.
it's already been, really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, several people who finished the first 5 have signed up again, so they're in the queue again. But what I'm learning is how to do. Okay, so this idea of I have it labeled on my site as group energy work, remote
Oh,
group
right.
energy work, and it's not. It's that I might have a set of people I work on at once, but it is not. It is individual to you, but
Yeah.
it is like you and my partner and somebody else. I might hold the image of the 3 of you in a line in my consciousness, and each of you receives the focused energy. So
Yeah.
you're, in my perspective, you're in a group, and I'm thinking it more like a set, like in mathematics, a
Yes,
set.
it's not, you're not making a stack where we're all mushed up
Correct.
together. It's
Correct.
still very separate. I mean, I do like the cookie sheet analogy because it reminds me
Yeah.
of the little guy in Shrek, the little, oh no,
Oh, I haven't seen that.
oh, well,
I've
that's
been under a
for
rock.
another day.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just, because it is, each person's energy is their own energy.
That's right.
And the Metatron energy, I mean, you talk about the Earth's energy a lot, and the Metatron energy is really vast,
Hmm.
and yet it's really clear. And so
Yes.
when it interfaces with the human sort of energetic, I don't know, you call it a biome, I don't know, the energetic field,
Hmm. Hmm.
um that clarifying essence is, it's not gonna commingle anything, because it's like
That's
its
right.
definition is really clarity. and
That's
so
right.
and so your training and your evolution in doing this, I think probably supports you being able to keep it separate.
Yes, yes. That's what I've learned. That's what
Hmm.
I was experimenting with you and my partner.
Hmm.
And then when I released, the other news and added people, that's what I
Yeah.
was experimenting with. And I
Yeah.
played with doing one person at a time. And then I
Hmm.
played with, the next time having the two people next to each other, in this image. And I played with it with different numbers and it's effective. It's working. So I don't have to worry about people getting mixed up together. That's not that, I've learned that now.
Hmm.
Now I have to make sure that my fifth chakra is completely relaxed.
Mm.
Because when I'm with Metatron, my habit is to funnel the energy through my body and focus and direct it. But this is about my consciousness
Ah,
sending you Metatron's energy, as
right.
opposed to me pushing Metatron's energy through my fifth chakra into you.
Right. So you just have to be super grounded, super open. Like,
Relaxed. And if I
w-
if I notice my fifth chakra getting at all tense, I have to
yeah.
relax it. That's the work for me,
Oh,
is to like,
interesting.
yeah, and when I'm doing that, I don't I think I did mention this to you before, like oh my gosh, what's that movie? Oh my gosh. Watchmen?
Oh,
The
yeah.
very the very, very, very long, I think Zack Snyder, um, and that, is it Dr. Manhattan? I still haven't looked it up. But
Yeah.
anyway, that sense of like, he's kind of like a Metatron figure where his consciousness spans all time.
Mm,
And when I'm in that moment and I relax my fifth chakra, I feel what the look in that actor's eyes appears to be to me. Do you understand?
yes.
I feel something akin to what he appears,
Yeah.
and it's this just like, it's amazing, this all-knowing. Now, I'm not saying I'm all-knowing, but just saying like this amazing detached connection with this extremely high consciousness where there's no effort,
Yeah.
and I'm just doing it, and it's gotten really intense, and so I don't have a time duration for how these sessions go. But
Mhm.
typically, if I'm working with like, you know, with a list of 8 names, it'll be 10 minutes. And that's also me experimenting with how intense it gets, or how, so it's actually,
Right.
anyway, I'm just,
I think what you've said to me is like when you've reported back to me, you'll say different amounts of time at different
yes,
times. And that may just be part of this is this is what needed to happen.
yes,
And
that's exactly right.
yeah, yeah,
And it turns out when I select the names from the list, I'm being guided for those people who need a lot today or not a lot today. Like that, it's
yeah.
all synchronistic. It's all lining up. Yeah.
Yes, your practice of years of being tuned into guidance
Yes.
really helps. And the um well, I think I used the word attunement, like the way that your uh antenna is just exquisite for
Yeah.
tuning into that supports your process. And like you say, being able to read the Akashic record, you don't need to do that in
That's
this,
right.
but you can pick up, like, I don't know, there's such a beauty to it. It's like this delicate dance with the energy, but then there's this profound effect. I
Yeah.
think it's amazing.
It's the consciousness of Metatron.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
feel so, I mean, mm, I guess I feel blessed. I feel very supported. I feel so lucky to have him
Mhm.
as a guide, not just as a
Yeah.
distant tutor, but I realize now that I'm more able
Mhm.
to consistently connect with his level of awareness, I'm aware of, I don't know, it's a deep connection that I've had to grow into because it's highly specialized.
Yeah.
And so now I'm at this place where my guides and everybody on the planet are telling me to slow down. my body's telling me to slow down, and and I'm like, okay, well, what's gonna what is my work gonna look like? And this came through.
Right.
And
And
so less
yeah.
effort. And yeah, and so and I'm just really, I feel really lucky and feel really blessed, and I'm gonna be doing some different variations on events with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the future, it's possible I might do like like pick a month, and every Saturday for a half an hour during that month,
Hmm.
gather a group together who sign up and do a thing. So it's longer time with the work, but less frequently, but only for a month. And so like I'm planning like different things like that for when I get to where I'm going, and can
Right.
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, to really experiment with it and to
Yes.
I before you said grow into, those were the words that were coming into my mind too,
Mm,
of just like like being able to see the arc of your process of really deepening your connection, like allowing yourself to be changed and grown by it, developed in it. Like, so there's your intention of doing it, but there's also
yeah.
your willingness to really let it work through you, and the
Yes.
benefit of that for all of us. I mean, I keep coming back to in my mind, like the intention, the goal of Metatron is to help us.
Yes.
And so your friendship, I mean, friendship is sort of a weird, maybe not the right exact word,
Mm,
but there is a beautiful friendship to it because,
mm,
here's this being who sees you as being able to help do his work. And
yes.
it helps you do, I mean, you guys have a relationship, and then it's coming to fruition in this way that just supports humanity, like anyone who can access it. And now you're being able to do it in a way that people can afford to do it, and it is
Yes.
accessible. It is more accessible. They
Exactly.
don't have to set aside specific time for it. It
That's right.
happens, in the background, and yet you receive
Hmm.
great benefits for it. It just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so amazing. It's really inspiring. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to keep doing it and excited to launch it for more, bring more people into the circle. And yeah, I'm just very grateful to be taught what I need to learn, to keep advancing, and to let life change.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I've been literally overworking in every arena, teaching and readings and
Yeah.
energy work for quite a long time. And
Yeah.
so all that has to get adjusted. And I was like, but I don't know what to do. So this kind of appears. And
So
yeah,
adventures with Metatron. And thank you for being alive to the opportunity and for using
mm,
it in this way that certainly helped me already, and I know is helping others.
thanks a lot. Yeah,
And for taking time to talk about it together. This is great.
thanks,
Thanks.
Ella. Thanks for
Okay.
doing this. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay.